These are the most shocking, interesting historical photos and unusual objects from the past. Let's get 10,000 subscribers. On April 20th, 1917, in Savigny-sur-Ardres, a group of soldiers discusses the situation with the driver of a Fiat truck that is stuck on a broken road. A 1919 Fiat truck with a unique crocodile skin lining stands on a broken road, surrounded by several men in military uniforms. Such an unusual body finish emphasizes an individual approach to the appearance of the vehicle during this period. A photograph of crocodile hunting in Egypt in the 1870s was taken by Henry Bachar, who opened a studio in Cairo and sold tourists photographs of ancient Egyptian structures. 3 boys hold pots of Easter flowers on a New York street in April 1908. Flowers were traditionally popular at Easter, and the scene can be attributed to work and everyday scenes of the early 20th century. Members of the Mongolian delegation present gifts to the military of the 11th Army of the Northwestern Front in 1942. The scene captures the moment when Soviet soldiers were supported by the Allies during World War II. A Soviet T-34 medium tank crosses the Konda-Sagava River in southern Sakhalin in 1945. On the armor is a group of military personnel involved in combat operations against Japanese forces. In October 1917, wounded soldiers were evacuated on makeshift stretchers from frontline trenches amid dampness and mud. During the war, France mobilized more than 8 million people, including hundreds of thousands from colonial territories. 3 elephants are playing cricket on the beach of the British city of Skegness, dressed in special caps and foot guards. The picture was taken on September 1st, 1936, reflecting an unusual sight for the local public. In 1885, in China, 3 women accused of witchcraft were put in wooden stocks and exposed to public ridicule. This method of punishment meant a prolonged stay on the street without food and water under the supervision of the crowd. Soviet soldiers with weapons observed German troops from a trench in the Crimea, 1941. The scene reflects the combat situation of the first months of the Great Patriotic War on the Southern Front. In August 1915, a soldier takes an outdoor shower next to a place where other military personnel are building wooden shacks. Turkish Bashi Buzuki, members of the irregular military formations of the Ottoman Empire, pictured in the photo from 1870. 7 years later, the Russian-Turkish War of 1877-1878 began, in which such detachments actively participated. A warrior of the Bashari tribe living in northeast Africa, photographed on a camel with a spear and a round shield in Egypt, 1880. An advertising or magazine photo in the style of the 1930s depicts a woman with a phone and a futuristic device in the foreground. Scenes with girls on the phone were often used by publishers of crime magazines to convey an atmosphere of disturbing messages about crimes. An officer of the Humane Society of Ottawa hides a puppy behind his back, preparing to hand it to a boy in front of a company car. The scene illustrates a moment of joyful meeting and caring for animals, probably in the 1960s. The founding of the city of Rio de Janeiro took place in 1565 by Portuguese colonists. The painting depicts the ceremonial moment of colonization, the landing of Europeans, and a meeting with the locals on the coast. The photo shows 2 buildings located on an elevation that is almost equal to their height. The cleared earth exposed the pavement. It remains unclear whether it was laid before the excavation began or whether the builders laid it out in advance. In 1914, St. Petersburg hosted one of the largest chess tournaments of the era, in which Alexander Alekhine, José Raúl Capablanca, Emanuel Lasker, and other leading masters of the world participated. The vertical boiler steam locomotive was built by the Beyer-Peacock Company and Co. Ltd in 1885 and sent to Australia for comparison with the American Baldwin locomotive. After working in the mines, he was returned to the UK. August 1930s, Albion, New York. An ad invited young drivers to try themselves in a spectacular head-on collision right on the site of the Congress of Brave Souls. The participant was promised a high-speed stunt to crash at 40 miles per hour, waiving any claims in case of injury or death. Do not repeat this in any way, done by professionals. The suitcase contains a miniature model of a railway section with buildings, trees, and a rural backdrop. This portable model allows you to quickly deploy and remove the playground without unnecessary hassle. Barbara Boucher poses on the cover of Detective Cases magazine, released in April 1965, becoming an icon of pop culture and cinema of that time. The vivid image of the actress was widely in demand in Italian comedies and crime productions of the 1960s and 1970s. A woman is bowling with a kangaroo on the track, both holding a game ball. An unusual scene shows an entertainment event involving animals, probably in the USA in the middle of the 20th century. The 17th century map depicts the city of New Amsterdam, founded by Dutch settlers on the site of modern New York City. In 1664, the city was renamed New York in honor of the Duke of York after the territory came under British control. The photo clearly shows that the buildings are almost half covered with soil, and the height of the layer reaches about 7 meters. Such excavation required large amounts of transported material and serious efforts by the builders. The operating room of the Russian Bank for Foreign Trade in St. Petersburg, 1913, is a spacious room with 2-tiered galleries and a large number of employees and customers. In 1951, W-class steam locomotive number 22, built by Bayer Peacock in Manchester, sailed from Birkenhead for transportation to Australia. His final place of service was the Silverton Railroad, located on the other side of the world. The car makes a springboard jump over a row of standing cars during the Lynch Death Dodgers show, popular in the USA in the middle of the 20th century. Extreme car stunts were the hallmark of such spectacular events and attracted a large audience. A historical photograph shows a group of men riding along a railway on a pedal bike, an early prototype of a motorcycle. Such vehicles were used to inspect tracks and technical needs at the turn of the 19th century. 2 people are working on the cables of a suspension bridge at a considerable height above the ground. Such an activity required the utmost care and experience in the maintenance of engineering structures in the middle of the 20th century. Men are having fun at the piano in the bar. One of them drinks from a large flask. Others play musical instruments and take pictures of what is happening. The stage reflects the atmosphere of entertainment and nightlife in the first decades of the 20th century. The photo shows a large crowd of people gathered to watch an excavator remove the last bucket of soil at the completion of a major urban development project. The photograph captures the historical moment of the end of the second redevelopment of the Denny Hill neighborhood in Seattle on December 10, 1930. A peasant family gathers for dinner by a kerosene lamp in the Ryazan province, 1913. In the red corner, there is a noticeable large number of ancient icons, many of which could have been inherited over several generations, possibly starting from the 16th century. A boy in a toy car stop next to a crashed car on a city street. The scene reflects the contrast between children's play and the real consequences of traffic accidents typical of the mid-20th century. In a photograph from the end of the 19th century, the ladies of St. Petersburg invite men to a white dance, following the etiquette of the era. The white dance allowed women to take the initiative, which was rare for social events in 1900. Lucky Teeter's Hell. Driver's team car performs a spectacular jump over a truck during a spectacular auto show in the USA. Such stunts and acrobatics behind the wheel were popular in the 1930s and 1940s, attracting thousands of spectators. The photo shows a small station of Latvian railways with a sign, Pope, typical of the infrastructure of the mid-20th century. Similar wooden buildings were used to serve passengers and cargo, far from major transport hubs. A chimpanzee named Kokomo Jr. plays with a water hose in the courtyard of a New York house, 1960. The animal has become a public favorite due to its funny and colorful antics in public. A circus photo from 1933 shows a trained cat hanging trained mice on a rope as part of a comedy act. Such performances were popular among circus audiences during the Great Depression era and emphasized the skill of the trainers. Three women in evening dresses pose at a table, amusingly eating spaghetti without using their hands. The scene reflects the popular motifs of vintage photography of the mid-20th century, combining humor and elements of glamour. The stunt team's car makes a spectacular jump through a burning obstacle, demonstrating the stunt skills and protection of the driver. The device in the photo is a Soviet lock used to control the movement of trains between stations and prevent collisions on the site. The device ensured that only one train could be located between 2 points of the railway, ensuring the safety of transportation. In 1961, at Bristol Zoo, 2 turtles were captured in one photograph, strikingly different in size, an adult giant and a tiny young one. This contrast clearly shows the diversity and life cycles of the representatives of the family of land turtles. In a 1922 photograph, young sailors in bathing suits are mooring a boat to a large vessel, practicing teamwork and maritime service skills. The scene conveys the spirit of summer marine practice among cadets, popular at the beginning of the 20th century. Pocket train schedules of the late 19th and early 20th centuries were decorated with bright covers and artistic illustrations, attracting the attention of passengers. Some of them contained advertisements, travel tips, and even useful railroad maps. In the Menagerie of Southam, Warwickshire, 1971, a touching scene was captured. A chimpanzee feeds a baby leopard from a bottle. Such interspecific interactions were a popular sight in zoos of the time, demonstrating the animal's extraordinary ability to take care of members of other species. In 1923, dozens of automatically rare cars gathered in a picturesque clearing, a real parade of retro equipment from the Roaring Twenties era. Rows of Hupmobiles and other popular brands can be seen in the background, and the picnic itself, judging by the scale, could have been a collector's club event. 4 sailors of the U.S. Navy pose on the deck with parrots, unusual ship pets that were often brought from tropical ports. Such exotic parrots were a symbol of successful sailing and served as mascots for the crew during long-distance flights. A mobile system with 3 microphones and a camera is a classic set for recording sound and images on location, 1924. Cinematographers use the latest sound synchronization technology, which has allowed commercial cinema to move from silent films to full-fledged sound films. The interior of the stylized 1925 campsite features a retro car, a tent with playful signs and a primitive kitchen area, while girls pose in swimsuits, all to create an atmosphere of carefree relaxation. A young panda is lying at a table and playing with a telephone, which looked extremely exotic to zoo visitors in 1940. In a 1930 photograph, 5 gentlemen pose against the background of an unusual steam locomotive, an advertising machine stylized as a steam locomotive. Such a vehicle was used to promote tourist attractions, attracting the attention of the public and the press with its unusual appearance. In the 1934 Christmas toy store, you can see popular models, stuffed dogs, wooden soldiers, and a Mickey Mouse figurine. Santa Claus stands in the foreground, inviting children to choose a gift from among the variety. The photo shows powerful vans from 1936, a novelty for its time, capable of transporting large and bulky goods between cities. It was these trucks that gradually replaced rail transportation on short routes and marked the heyday of motor transport in America. 2 men shake hands in front of the famous Joe DiMaggio Grotto restaurant near a 1937 Pontiac test car presented by Texaco. The model stood out for its technological solutions, independent suspension, and aerodynamic body, all for maximum comfort. The unique Pontiac Deluxe 6 with a plexiglass body was presented at the New York World's Fair in 1940, clearly demonstrating the internal mechanisms of the car. Such a transparent exhibit became a symbol of technological optimism of that time and was assembled in a single copy. In the 1970s, passenger trams were used in Magdeburg as platforms for transporting Trabant passenger cars from the station to the distribution warehouse, turning urban transport into a unique car carrier. This unconventional solution helped to reduce the load on the roads, saving the city center from bulky road trains. The office of the transport company in 1911 was decorated simply: wooden tables, chandeliers, and separate offices. Employees are busy with paperwork on the organization of cargo routes, all manually against the background of piles of documents and schedules. Here is a Soviet composter for piercing or cutting tickets on buses, trolley buses, and trams. Such bright orange mechanisms were mounted on handrails and were an indispensable attribute of urban transport in the USSR since the 1970s. In 2001, the legendary battleship Iowa passed through the narrow locks of the Panama Canal, demonstrating the utmost precision of the work of naval pilots and engineers. The ship's dimensions were so large that only a few centimeters remained between the steel walls of the canal. In Karelia, clay was mixed for bricks in an artisanal way. Workers used the strength of a horse to achieve the desired uniformity of the mass. This method persisted until the middle of the 20th century, especially in the northern villages, where mechanization was unavailable. The mobile pigeon mail service was equipped with a special car, on the roof of which there was a spacious pigeon house for transporting carrier pigeons. This system was actively used by Army units at the beginning of the 20th century to quickly transmit messages at the front and in the rear. Bomber pilots are shown wearing insulated leather jackets, oxygen masks, and goggles designed for high-altitude operations. 1942. Such equipment was used for long combat missions at extremely low temperatures and the threat of chemical attacks. Military cyclists staged a parade, decorating their bicycles with miniature models of airplanes, imitating a squadron group. Such an unusual drill was held to raise morale and maintain a sense of unity among the troops. 1910 Brokerage House. Employees monitor quotes, which are manually updated on a large board, and all information is received by telephone and telegraph. The focus is on live discussion of stock market news and lightning, fast transactions without computers and electronic terminals. The photo shows an antique yard, a folding wooden ruler that merchants and craftsmen used to accurately measure fabrics and other goods. It was from such a tool that the expression, "measuring everything with your yard," came. Traffic jam in Piccadilly. London omnibuses of the early 20th century are hung with advertisements for popular products, from soap and cocoa to Kodak film. Passengers on the upper decks escape from the rain under umbrellas, and the omnibuses themselves have become the prototype of modern double-decker buses. Chicago, rush hour, 1909. The streets are packed with a dense mix of electric trams, horse-drawn carriages, and hundreds of people are making their way through the crowd. The city grew so fast that the traffic chaos became a symbol of industrial progress and a challenge for the first road services. Travelers of the early 20th century used luxury suitcases closets with multiple compartments for dresses, shoes, accessories, and even fans. Such travel wardrobes were a sign of status and allowed ladies to keep order, even on long trips. The photo shows antique wooden walkers that were used to teach children how to walk in rural families. The simple design reliably supported the baby, preventing falls during the first steps. In 1924, a second wooden mausoleum for Lenin was erected on Red Square, despite the strong resistance of some party leaders. Trotsky called the project madness, Kamenev called it popery, and Bukharin opposed any attempts to exalt the ashes. The photo shows the central street of Sumy, 1923, filled with a long line of carts with agricultural products and construction materials. Urban life in the early 20th century was bustling around fairs and the exchange of goods, when horse-drawn sleds were the main mode of transport. Sailors maintain an anti-aircraft gun on the deck of a battleship, 1916. This type of weapon was designed to repel attacks from the air. The high position of the installation provided wide coverage and improved the effectiveness of the ship's air defense. The 1944 photographs show crews of large-caliber DSHK machine guns mounted on 4 GPA amphibious vehicles during a river crossing. Such mobile firing points actively supported the offensive of Oznaz units of the First Belarusian Front and ensured the suppression of enemy resistance. The image shows a finger-stretching tool, a special device designed to train pianists and improve their flexibility when playing. The mechanism made it possible to gradually increase the distance between the fingers, which was especially important for the virtuoso performance of complex works. A special device is installed inside the space helmet, a stepped sponge that allows astronauts to scratch their nose or forehead in zero gravity. Such a device has become an indispensable element of a spacesuit for long space missions, providing comfort without removing the sealed helmet. The photo shows children in homemade costumes celebrating Halloween in 1900. Ordinary clothes were complemented with scarves, capes, and simple hats. Such modest outfits illustrate how the tradition of costume celebrations was born among urban and rural children. In the Los Angeles wholesale market in 1927, a real traffic jam was formed from trucks, vans, and cars that arrived for fresh produce and goods. The vibrant scene reflects the growth of trade and the logistical difficulties of the metropolis in an era of rapid development of the automotive market. The photo shows the legendary transport flight. The Soviet Buran orbiter is mounted on the back of a giant On-225 Mriya aircraft for ground logistics between production and launch complexes. In Alaska, traditional trampolining is carried out using a large leather canvas, which is pulled by several people at once. This is an ancient Inuit rite that unites the inhabitants and provides not only fun, but also dexterity training for hunting. The Red Square Parade took place on November 7, 1941, when German troops were in the immediate vicinity of Moscow. After the parade, the Red Army soldiers went to the front. Many went into battle still in festive uniforms and under gunfire. The historical photo shows an unusual technical modification. Street brooms are attached to the old car, turning it into a homemade road. Sweeping machine. This way of maintaining cleanliness reflects the creative approach of urban residents in the fight against street dust. The 1977 photo shows the actors of Star Wars on the set, captured outside the usual images of the space saga. Such a rare behind-the-scenes scene provides an opportunity to see the immediate atmosphere of working on a cult film. The photo shows the first Soviet cosmonauts relaxing in nature, chatting over a modest picnic against the background of birch trees and a lake. Such moments of friendship and solidarity were important for the moral support of the participants of the first space expeditions. Here is one of the first ambulance options, a tricycle with a sealed stretcher, used to transport the wounded in the early 20th century. This design made it possible to quickly reach the victims, even through narrow streets or during combat operations. Santa Claus congratulates the guys right by the pool, Moscow, creating an atmosphere of a New Year's holiday even during a training swim. An unusual meeting gives children joy and inspires them to achieve sports achievements in winter. Katie Sandvina, known as Lady Hercules, became a famous circus athlete who worked in America's largest shows for more than 30 years. She not only defeated men in power matches, but also went down in the history of the sport, inspiring the next generation, including her own boxer son. The photo shows the process of assembling televisions at a factory in the German Democratic Republic in the 1960s. In the row, both open assemblies with vacuum tubes and ready-made housings are visible, and the devices themselves were an important part of the mass culture of the GDR. In 1959, the Dior fashion show took place in Moscow, which became a landmark event for the Soviet public. The meeting of two different styles, Parisian haute couture and casual Soviet clothes, attracted the special attention of residents, causing a surge of interest in Western culture. A soldier carries a donkey on his shoulders through a minefield to protect the animal from possible explosions. This unusual scene clearly shows the care of animals even in difficult conditions of military operations. A crowded beach in Atlantic City, 1908. On a day off, hundreds of people dressed in beach costumes and outfits of the era gathered on the shore. This popularity of the resort reflects the new style of recreation of the early 20th century and the development of mass tourism in the United States. Photographers are filming the Olympic torch relay directly from the open trunk of a passenger car to capture the dynamic moments on Gorky Street. This solution allowed us to get unique shots right during the event, despite the speed and dense crowd of spectators. Circus performers perform right on the armor of a Soviet tank in front of a crowd of soldiers during a march to Berlin, spring 1945. During the difficult days of the war, such performances helped to maintain morale and gave the soldiers a brief respite from everyday life at the front. In the 1920s, Berlin photographers created spectacular images, risking their lives for a good shot on the roofs and spires of the old city. The photo shows posing on architectural decorations at a high altitude with a panorama of the city center and the canal, reflecting the search for new genres and the desire for entertainment in pre-war Europe. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Moscovich 408 cars were actively used as patrol cars by the Helsinki City Police. Soviet cars were valued for their reliability and accessibility, which became an unusual example of cooperation between the USSR and Finland in the field of law enforcement services. The photo shows the Reitwagen, the first motorcycle in the world, created by Gottlieb Daimler in 1885 on a wooden frame with an internal combustion engine. This invention became the basis for the further development of motorized transport and opened a new era in the history of technology. In the photo is Sarla Thakral, India's first woman to receive a pilot's license in 1936. She made her first solo flight at the age of 21, paving the way for women in Indian aviation and changing the perception of the pilot profession in the country. Circus elephants Kiri and Manny helped to clear the streets of destroyed Hamburg of large debris after the war, November 1945. Effective and unusual labor resources were used when heavy machinery was not enough even to restore urban infrastructure. The photo captures the moment of the steeplechase competition, when one of the athletes does not jump over the barriers, but knocks them down on his way. This moment reflects the technical difficulties and errors during the races that affect the outcome of the competition. A woman in a blue coat walks to a mailbox through the rubble of a destroyed London neighborhood after the German bombing, 1940. Even in the conditions of military chaos and constant air raids, life continued. People kept in touch with their loved ones through letters. In the historical photo, a cleaner sweeps the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the U.S. financial center. Such a scene illustrates the everyday life of the stock exchange, where, along with large transactions, it is important to maintain order and cleanliness. In tobacco factories of the 19th and 20th centuries, it was customary for a special reader to voice news and fresh novels to workers during labor. This tradition helped to break the monotony of production and increase the awareness of the team. The passengers of the tourist carriage are busy reading newspapers and books, comfortably sitting on the seats and upper shelves, the atmosphere of a long-distance journey of the early 20th century. Such wagons provided comfort on the road, becoming a symbol of new opportunities for mass tourism. In 1914, blind children had the opportunity to tactilely study the figure of a hippopotamus in the exposition of the American Museum of Natural History. This approach developed an interest in zoology and opened up new educational methods for visually impaired children. In the photo, a group of chefs and students are tasting dishes in a Soviet canteen. Such collective trial dinners were an important part of the technological process and the training of professional chefs. In December 1956, Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy rode on the first bus to Montgomery, where racial segregation was abolished. This event marked an important milestone in the history of the struggle for civil rights in the United States and marked the victory of the bus boycott movement. In 1915, at the front, a father and son from a German regiment read a letter sent by his wife and mother. Such family moments supported the soldiers spiritually during the First World War, connecting them with home even on the front line. During the Tour de France in 1927, cyclists overcame difficult mountain stages on dirt roads, pouring water on themselves right on the move. Such conditions were required in an era when comfort and technical support were minimal, and each race became a real test of endurance.